I'm pointing at you. That's how you know that I am acknowledging the audience, because I will point directly at you with my index finger every time. That's not true. I just felt like pointing at the camera this time. What's up? What's up? What's up? Sounded like Dan from fucking Street Fighter. Oh, man. Yesterday was a doozy, I'm not gonna lie. Hello Gotron. Welcome back. I had a lot of shit to do yesterday. I did a lot of chores. I went to the food bank. I froze my fucking digits off, both at the food bank and on the way back yesterday, because my gloves weren't great. I need winter gloves. I don't have very good winter gloves. And we were bagging chicken, and the chicken was frostbitten, so there were chunks of ice all over it. So that was, it was a trial and a tribulation. My body can't detect cold temperatures well. Uh, that could be a good or a bad thing. But, you know, my hands really do not take well to the cold. Uh, the rest of me was fine. Like, even though I could feel the chill of the wind and stuff yesterday, it wasn't too bad except for my hands, because you know, your fingers are the sort of weakest link. Like when your hands and your fingers get cold, the blood actually recedes from them. That's part of why you lose control over your fingers when you get so cold. There's no blood moving there. Like, the blood stops moving. Or it you know, recedes entirely. So that was unfortunate. But it was still a good experience overall, because I went to the food bank and I talked with people that I hadn't seen in a while. And you know, it was good to be back, basically. Apart from that, yesterday was like chores, vacuuming, cleaning, laundry, etc. A little chilly is weirdly comfortable for me. A little chilly is really good for me when I'm going to sleep. Um, Whoa, what is this? Latest CTGPC version. What is that? I don't know what CTGPC is. CTGP Classic? Maybe? I don't know. Well, what is this? Huh. Oh, old school CTGP? Oh shit, I actually might want to install that. That's crazy. I love that. Maybe I'll do that. Futurist makes me feel like I'm crazy, because everyone in my life thinks everything is gonna go great. Well, at that point, you just need to make the executive decision to not listen to those motherfuckers. You know? Alright. The best vehicle. We're still on the all vehicle tour, baby. Hello, bro the boss. Welcome back. We got a full room here, that's nice. And I've got a full list. I know, it's just a weird feeling. It is a weird feeling. You know what the feeling is? The feeling is what is it? Dissonance? It's like disbelief. Because, you know, it's hard to be in such a state of denial. Or it's hard to be confronted with people who are in such a state of denial that anything could possibly happen, for better or worse. Um, Particularly for worse. My super base teacher that I stay in contact with also knows that the future is going to be dark. That's good. You know, even if you guys like both, even when we acknowledge that like the future does not really have optimistic prospects for it, it's good. There's camaraderie and collective suffering at the very least when um when you're both aware of the problem and agree that, like, well, some super basic shit. Everyone believes the status quo will remain. Yeah, and that's part of the neoliberal brain rot. Everybody has been conditioned to think that this is the only reality that's possible. This is one of the products of neoliberalism, uh, characterizing itself as not political and not ideological. As a result, everybody assumes things are normal that are actually a contingent part of a like political system, a system that has changed over time, that has not always been the same, that will not always be the same. Maybe my autism is self-defense against the status quo. Unironically, yes, it is. There have been, I think, some studies to indicate that autistic people are more invested in systemic critique, that they are more inclined towards that, or people that we would collectively label as autistic or whatever, and that have a more pronounced system of ethics. I think there was actually, I remember there being a really fucked up article that was like, oh yeah, autistic people care too much about what is right and wrong in the world, or some shit like that. And I was like, wow, really, spelling out how you just don't have values. So in a way, yes, it is. Damn it. I haven't gotten an item yet, and I'm doing, like, okay. Oh, this thing doesn't get mini turbo for shit. I do care too much. There's no such thing as caring too much, right? There is such a thing as like, assigning, like, there's such a thing as, like, caring in the wrong way, and that's just a matter of, like, misunderstanding, right? But, like, you can never care too much about something that dictates the lives of millions, Jeez, look how short that purple mini turbo is. Probable Republican was like, you have ethics? Yeah, that's great, I mean, given the socioeconomic makeup of the average news media outlet, that that guy probably was a Republican who wrote that article. Oh shit! No, that's the first wall I've hit the whole time. Oh, and I fell off. I actually didn't want a purple mini turbo there. What is that respawn? I can't see anything. God damn. Mario Karted at the very end. Stop respawning me here! What is wrong with this track? Jesus, that respawn needs to be fixed. Calling Vosh Mr. V so I can use it with Siri. Sick. Jesus. Okay, whoever made that track, you need to fix that respawn and that respawn specifically. Because it spawns you in front of something where you can't fucking see. Aren't sentient. It sometimes feels like they're trying to hate you. Well, the game itself is not sentient, but everybody playing the game is. And there's a mindset in Mario Kart Wii that's very toxic and competitive and antisocial, where it is very easy to enact a cathartic sort of justice by proxy or whatever, or just catharsis on somebody who's been hit a bunch of times already. That's where being Mario Karted comes from, because there's a natural inclination for people to run into somebody who's already vulnerable from having already been hit. That's by accident. There's also that same tendency that drives people to sometimes do that on purpose, be it to swerve just a little bit to do the funny haha, hit the guy that's like in 9th place with a star. And it's also possible that some of these people know that I'm streaming. So there's the motivation to stream snipe and hit the funny streamer man. Or some people might also just feel like, oh, he's on the super blooper. What a fucking idiot driving a bad vehicle, right? So it's like there's a number of things that make it so that I am more likely to be hit when I am in the back on a very distinguishable character vehicle combination and in a vulnerable position from having been hit already. It's not anything personal towards any of the drivers in this game. This is just a sociological analysis of how Mario Kart plays out on the race course. Everybody plays the game like this to a certain extent, you know? Do I like it? No, not usually. But, you know, it's just, it is what it is. I can't take the Ultra with this thing. Didn't get a thing. I hope I didn't bump that guy out of the way of the item boxes. I wanted to get a box and, you know, stuff. You see the killer wrote words on the shells of the bullets? Yes, I did. In fact, I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Since I put it in the title of the stream, I thought it was, you know, pretty funny. Can I get this box? Come on, give me something. Okay, well, so much for that. How are you supposed to do this on a cart? I don't know, I guess like this? I don't know. Okay. I'm gonna go over here. This thing controls like absolute shit, but I'm gonna make it work. Okay. Not bad so far. How much people like punishment makes me, who doesn't like it, extremist. That should be the motto. I'll make it work. Yeah. that is kind of like the motto of this channel for Mario Kart. It's just like, I'm making it work. 5th place? I'll take 5th. Oh, the left motto. Yes, that also does work for a really good motto for the left. Is, you know, we're making it work. Fuck yeah! I get to move on from this shitty ass vehicle. I got +4. Let's go, baby. So, the assassination of a pharmaceutical company, or not pharmaceutical company, insurance company CEO. This was the CEO of United Healthcare, who was gunned down in broad daylight on the streets of New York City by an unknown gunman. The police released a photo of the guy, but do not be fooled, that's not actually what he looks like. The police basically just used an AI algorithm to be like, yeah, what does he look like under the mask? And of course, because it's an AI, it's just gonna be like, oh, you want me to take off the mask and put a face there? Okay. And it like makes some shit up for like, okay, here's what a person's face looks like, I guess. And then they're like, that's it, that's the guy. And that's the photo that's been circulating around. You know, the one where he's smiling and has the, like, Giga Chad jawline. Did the AI make a black person? No, but that would be incredibly funny. Yeah, so the photo that people have been seeing is not actually the guy. That's the AI, construction of what the guy, I don't know, maybe kind of sort of doesn't really look like, under the mask, you know? So, the police ain't never catching this guy, right? That might hurt the investigation. It definitely is. Like, even if it doesn't hurt, it's not going to help. And I think that's important for our analysis here because, you know, first off, it's important to stipulate the police fucking suck at their job. Even when they are motivated and sort of mobilized en masse to actually do something, as they have been in this case, you know, police are not really interested in addressing violence against the poor because that's their job. Their job is to perpetuate that violence. But if a rich person gets, you know, gets their fifis hurt, or in this case gets killed, then, you know, they're on the case, right? That's how a capitalistic policing institution works. But But even under such circumstances, we got to remember that the police are not good at what they do. All of the data shows that the police fucking suck at solving murders, and they suck at addressing crimes that have already happened. All they do is, well, harass drivers and, like, repress poor communities. Like, that's kind of it. I didn't realize how much cartoons making police look like idiots was so base. Yeah, you know, the more I read about, like, the nature of policing institutions, I was like, wait a minute, maybe those cartoons were fucking cooking when the police were all, like, fat idiots that ate donuts all the time, you know? I gotta apologize to you know, Cartoon Network. I was not familiar with their game. Cool. But to put this event more in context, the police are not going to catch this guy. People really were supportive of him online, and this is because of the absolute state of the health industry in the United States. Canadians are going to be eating good right now, and Europeans are going to be eating good right now, because I'm about to expose the horror of American healthcare, or rather the lack thereof. You see, in a normal country, you know, in a real country, what happens is you have a public health system, or a single-payer healthcare system, where people are able to access pharmaceutical drugs, prescription drugs, and go to the doctor and go to the, like, hospital if they get injured, if they get sick, free of cost or at a very, very low cost, because most of that is funded by tax money, and the government negotiates prices. The government, like, basically behind the scenes kind of strong arms any of the private industry that's involved in the process into being like, okay, yeah, we're not going to charge you very much, if anything. You know, that's a single payer system, is that, you know, the government is sort of negotiating and exerting its weight so that health prices are not dictated by the market and stuff like that. There are still perverse incentives and problems that can arise even in this system if it is not, like, completely socialized medicine, because you can still have stuff like health deserts and things like that. But that's another topic. In the US, what you have is a for-profit health industry. Hospitals are not owned publicly. They are owned privately. They are run by for-profit corporations, as are insurance companies. Basically, the job of the hospital and the insurance company are to charge each other as much money as possible to get as much money as possible from both each other and, what ends up happening more frequently, the patients. Because in a capitalist or market-driven mode of business, it is you know, the incentive is to offload the costs, right? And with all this administrative red tape, who does the cost get offloaded to? The patients, right? Like, you go to the hospital, you have to, I don't know, maybe it's an ER visit. It's like, oh no, I broke my foot. You know, you go, you get a special boot or whatever. The hospital's like, that'll be $3,000. That's actually a lowball. It'd probably be more like $15,000. You know, $15,000 because you broke your foot, right? That's more than some people make in, well, it's about half as much as some people make in a year. And it's more than basically anybody has in savings. So the insurance company steps in and is like, that's all right, we'll cover it. But then they stick you with an amount that you have to pay either way. Now, keep in mind, they just made that shit up. None of that costs $15,000. Like, if you tallied up all of the equipment and labor costs used in any of these procedures, the cost comes out to probably like $150 or like $1,000 maximum if you're in like a particular kind of situation. I'm trying to stipulate just how much that, like, the only reason that healthcare costs are so high is because, yes, the system is designed to put people in debt and to basically prioritize the bottom line and quarterly profits. Everything in a capitalist system, including the health industry, including the medical sector, is organized on the basis of how much profit can we squeeze out of a 3-month period, right? That's because that's a quarter of a year, which results in United Healthcare, which has denied, I think, over 30% of the health insurance claims of people that needed health insurance. Yes, it is trying to put people in a state of slavery without overtly saying that they are slaves. It is creating an economic underclass that is perpetually indebted, and that will have to toil endlessly, basically for no benefit, such that wealth transfers up. This is just the medicalized version of that. But yes, grandpa needs his insulin, your older uncle has cancer and needs treatment. Well, fear not. United Healthcare, one of the biggest health insurance companies in America, has an AI algorithm that will deny 90% of insurance claims automatically. I'm not making that up. They use an AI algorithm that denies 90% of the claims that they give it. Now, they don't give it every claim, but that still results in over 30% of all health insurance claims ever given to that company being denied. And that's just the ones that are denied outright. And it doesn't account for the ones that are like only covered for like a absolutely pitiful amount. It's possible that your claim isn't denied, but you still don't get covered, right? Like there's such a thing as like, oh yeah, we'll only cover this much, and that doesn't count as a claim denial, right? This is the absolute state of the health insurance system that has motivated the assassin to go and just gun down a CEO in broad daylight, knowing they would incite the entire ire of the state upon them. And B, the sort of mass approval that everybody is displaying for this individual that went and gunned down a CEO, right? If you have a public health insurance system that doesn't allow private insurance, if you have Medicare for all, if you have a single-payer system, this doesn't happen. There is a nonviolent solution to this, and the nonviolent solution is just Medicare for all. Otherwise, CEOs and healthcare executives of the world, you're gonna just have to, wake up every day knowing that somebody might gun you down for denying all their health insurance claims when their grandparents had cancer. Sorry. That's what it is. Also, the cart sucks. Oh my... Dude. This reminds me of the scene in in The Incredibles. Yeah, it is kind of like that scene. Very similar to that scene. This cart really sucks. Yeah, beat one person. Okay. Do public health insurance? People want private insurance, they can have it? No, actually, that is called a public option, what you're referring to, and it sucks. It just doesn't suck as much as the American health insurance system. This is not the system used in European countries. That is a step below single payer. What would happen in a public health system with a public option where there's also private insurance is that the public option would naturally attract all of the lowest income and highest risk people, which leads to the public option being disproportionately expensive to maintain relative to the private insurance market. This is literally only a halfway measure that serves to justify a 100% private system. You have to just not have private insurance at all. Private health insurance should be banned. Do you understand what I'm saying? Having any allowance for privatizing a health system only incentivizes letting people get sick and die for money. It is, the entire concept of it is unethical. This is why you can't just be content with a public option, because that's just going to decay back into the shit show that we have in America. Look what's happening in the UK. There's your public option for you right there. It's decaying back into this totally privatized system that does nothing for nobody except for, I don't know, making investors pretty rich and then leaves poor people out to die by the thousands. You have to have single payer. Literally, the choice here is, do you want socialism or do you want barbarism? You can't try to be like, we can have a little bit of barbarism. I don't want the public option to just be they buy the medicine. I want them to make it. That would be good too. In fact, you know, that would also be a form of cutting out the middleman. Never thought about it like that, damn. Yeah, it's important to recognize this, that, like, private just means for profit. And when you're dealing with health and stuff, you know, health is a matter for which there is inelastic demand. If somebody's got cancer, you can drain their whole life savings in front of them, and they'll just have to, like, put up with it, because what's the alternative? They die. You know? It's pretty fucked up. Should nickname the private the selfish option? True. That'd be good. And yeah, you know, Gotron, to your point, we already pay for the entire cost of the health industry. All of that stuff I was saying about the government negotiating costs and whatnot, in the United States, the government still pays for that stuff. We just don't negotiate it. So the insurance companies can charge the government whatever they want, which means taxes are really, like, are higher than they would be otherwise with regards to research and development of health products and like drugs over the counter and stuff like that. We already pay for that in the form of taxes. The health industry is massively subsidized, as is the, you know, the supply chain for it, because it is an essential industry for which, you know, society can't function without it. The difference is we're allowing the private industry to charge us double. We're paying for everything twice by allowing private actors to be a part of the system at all. Just make public insurance compulsory, then everyone has to use it. I mean, that's kind of redundant if you're only allowing public insurance in to begin with. Again, any allowance for private insurance to exist only serves to create an economic backslide where eventually you wind back up at a private health insurance system where people die by the tens of thousands every year. Why? What do you mean why? I just explained it. Because there's a lopsided relationship between the interests of the public and the interests of the capital class. They have money and power. If they have a wedge, they're going to use it. Private insurance, the allowance of private insurance to exist, is the wedge by which they can exert their interest. And it is in their interest for people to get sick and die because that serves their profit. That serves their bottom line. They're going to leverage that. We're literally seeing this right now in the UK. The UK is exactly the argument against allowing private insurance to exist because of the sorry state of the NHS. And, you know, also the United States is a pretty good argument against that. We have public health care, national insurance fund, and various private insurers. It's nice. It's not going to be nice for long. You know? And it's not as nice as it could be. It could be better over in Lithuania if that's the system you have, and mark my words, there's going to be backslide. Mind you, all of what you're describing is an improvement over the United States, but what I'm describing is that the United States simply suffers more from a flaw that is inherent to private insurance. Our healthcare system has problems, but it's free. And that's the thing. If it has those problems, if you haven't solved that fundamental problem, it's not going to be free forever. Because the capital interests are going to try to reassert themselves, which means charging people more, gutting the public health insurance system, and just letting people die. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying that you don't have it good or that you don't have it better than the United States. What I'm saying is that the same fundamental problem that is leading to tens of thousands dying every year in the United States still exists in some of these countries. It hasn't been all the way fixed, you know? And in order to prevent the situation that we're having in the United States, you have to get rid of that. How would they gut that system? By lobbying the government. The capital class has money and power, and that means they have inroads to government. And they can tell the government, hey, we think you should do X, Y, and Z, you know, and do a little bit of, like, I don't know, quid pro quo relationships and things like that. It's not as direct as, like, giving them a basket of cash or whatever, but capital has a very easy time getting into the ear of people in government. They have a lot of people, they have a lot of resources at their disposal, and that means that they can convince people in government, yeah, this is a good idea. Or they could even leverage certain political mechanisms to say, hey, look, we can guarantee certain securities in your political career if you do this for us. Public system is popular. Politicians won't listen. They still want to get elected. And that is one of the levers that capital has over politicians. They control the media apparatus that dictates whether or not people get elected. You know, who do you think the politicians answer to? The people that vote for them? Motherfucker, the decision was already made before your ballot was even cast. Do you understand what I'm talking about? This is still a capitalist system with certain inherent flaws, in this case with respect to a health insurance system or a healthcare system. Yeah, if it wasn't for the rich, they would, like, it wouldn't look anything like this. Yeah, the capital class owns all the media, so if there's a very, very tense situation that politicians and the government has to navigate, where if they don't, like, capitulate to the interests of private capital somewhat, then private capital brings the hammer of their media apparatus down on them, right? Like, think about any, you know, politician that has overtly voiced support for a healthcare system that would cut out private actors entirely. Think of how the media portrayed Bernie Sanders when he said that Medicare for all was a good idea. The questions were always, how do we pay for it? How do we pay for it? How do we pay for it? Pushing back against the capital interests will always, always, always earn you their ire. And that's going to have political consequences. And that means that you can, like, potentially step on their toes hard enough that they start manufacturing consent against you to not elect you into office. Not really. Most media is either state-owned or subsidized by the state. State-owned and state-subsidized are very different things. And if they're state-subsidized, that means they're still privately owned. And if they're owned by the state, that doesn't even necessarily mean they're owned by the public. It's possible for something to be owned by a quote-unquote state corporation, or to be owned in a way that still allows for private shareholders, in which case it is still a private ownership model that dictates that profits be put first. So in a way, having certain state-owned media outlets under a structure that is not like a workers' cooperative will still perpetuate this problem where, like, the government now just becomes the interests of private capital. This is always going to be an uphill fight unless you commit to fighting against those interests directly. Do you know what I'm saying? No, I fucked up. Yeah, but if it ain't broke, why fix it? It is broke. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You're not listening. I'm saying you have it less broken over there than we have here. I don't think you're able to understand, like, we have a liberal? Yeah. Dude, Europeans' brains break over this sometimes. Look, I'm trying to explain to you, you guys are still capitalists. You have not fixed the fundamental problem. You just have a more easy-to-fix version of that problem than we do. Yeah, I like capitalism. Fucking El Bozo. Get the fuck out of here. Not literally, but, like, capitalism, like, what the fuck has capitalism done? Late, as of late. You can make certain arguments for capitalism during the era of industrialization, during Adam Smith's time. Think it needs to be regulated, but capitalism does good? Fucking how? How? Give me one example. One of how modern capitalism is a benefit where socialism would not be. Crack technically ain't broke? That's true. That's how I like all my video games. Kidding, police, don't arrest me over that. Yeah, like, there are no consequences for rich people. They own and control everything. Their interests directly contravene the interests of broader society. There is every incentive in a late capitalist system for shit to just go wrong all the time. And we've known this. We've known this for decades, for centuries. There's no way in which capitalism is better than socialism. I support market regulation. I don't think you understand what I'm saying. A regulated capitalist market is still a capitalist market. If you regulate the amount of death and suffering that the capital class is allowed to sow, they are still allowed to sow death and suffering for their own profit. Do you understand what I'm saying? I feel like this is all just going over your head. And it's critical that you understand what I'm saying, not just from the perspective of me being right and you being wrong and also a European and a liberal, but from the perspective of understanding why this guy assassinated this healthcare CEO and why everybody was cheering for it and why everybody is so upset with the system. Motherfucker, you have that same system. Do you think the goal of all rich people is to torture you? Not necessarily. I think the goal of all rich people is to amass as much profit as possible, which necessitates the suffering of the bottom strata of society. Because, I mean, like, that's how rich and poor are defined. You can't have rich without, like, poor people being exploited. Yeah, by definition, what makes people rich is that there has to be a poor underclass under them. Like, that's what the rich are. And if they have to torture me in order to get rich, they will, because that is their material interest. Literally read 1984. It explains this perfectly. Rich people will make the world worse for everybody, including themselves, if it means the gap between them and the poorest in society gets wider. What do you think is behind all the climate change denial? Do you think climate change denial is good for the bottom line? Maybe in the fucking, like, short, like, intermediate term, but these rich people are starting to build doomsday bunkers. They're starting to look towards the future where they know that the world is going to get apocalyptically bad. You think they care? No! They just want the world to be more favorable to them than it is to the poor. That's what capitalism creates. Not torture, but exploit your labor, yeah? Same fucking difference. The term is relative profit. The rich would be perfectly fine to see hundreds of millions die in, like, horrific ways if it meant that they were more well off relative to the rest of society. Mind you, the term relative profit means that life gets worse for everybody, including the rich, but they'll still be okay with that if it means that they're more powerful comparatively relative to the poor. That is why we have the state equalizing the playing field. That's not the fucking solution to that. Look, you need the state to do these sort of things, but ultimately you're talking about, yeah, this is why we have stopgaps. Motherfucker, you've said, like, the rich can only have a little bit of death and destruction. How about no death and destruction? How about we don't have the rich at all? How about we don't have the poor at all? How about we obliterate the fucking class structure that currently plagues modern society and actually build something better that doesn't have the incentive of, yeah, fucking maximize profit every 3 months? How are you not understanding this? It's literally everywhere that you look. Fucking, oh yeah, corners being cut here. Fucking people being laid off there. Literally everything that happens, like, as of late in a capitalist society is designed to sow suffering in the masses to the benefit of the rich. And in fact, random acts of goodness. There are people being fucking arrested at the behest of, like, local law enforcement and whatever for running food banks. Random acts of kindness that theoretically don't completely fall in line with the interests of capital are getting prosecuted by the long arm of the state, motherfucker. How is this okay with you? This is an essential part of capitalism. That is American? No, it fucking isn't. Not uniquely. Does it happen in America? Yes. More so than in other countries. Does it completely not happen in other countries? No. I've seen stories of this happening in Europe too. You guys are not immune from this. God, Europeans get such a fucking big head whenever, like, whenever Americans talk about, like, critiquing their own system, because all you can fucking think about is how far your head is up your ass and how much better Europe is than America. Motherfucker, I know. That's what I'm critiquing, is the reason why Europe is better than America and how the same flaw still persists. Just less bad. Jesus. What did I come into? King Alex, welcome back. Sorry, Yelling match. Yeah, European liberal in chat being insufferable about how, oh, if only you just had the European system and also no further change is necessary because we've reached the fucking end of history. At what point does your response mold into what the fuck is a kilometer? It doesn't? What the fuck are you on about? You think any of this is tailored to, like, fucking say, I'm American, I'm so much better than you? No! I'm not smarter than you because I'm American. I'm smarter than you because I'm smarter than you. I know it's a meme, but, you know. I'm not saying no change is necessary, lol. But what you are saying is no fundamental change is necessary. If you are saying that you like capitalism, capitalism being the current system with all its systemic flaws, then what you are saying is no fundamental change is necessary. You're a neoliberal arguing for tweaks around the margins. I like life under capitalism right now. No, you fucking don't. Everybody deludes themselves into thinking like that. Everybody deludes themselves into thinking like, oh yeah, my life is pretty good like that. Like that right now. Motherfucker, the ways in which your life is good are being eroded constantly by the interests of private capital and will only be more so over time. The only way that life can substantially get better in a systemic fashion is if you start challenging the interests of private capital. You are exactly the reason that society sucks right now. You and your ideology have allowed society to stagnate the world over, have produced far-right movements in every country on earth, and have resulted in a system of health insurance where tens of thousands die per year. And you're putting on the blinders to it because you just have it less bad than America does. Like, if you were in the United States, you would be a fucking, like, Clintonite liberal. I have no doubt about this. Yeah, like, remember what I said when I was reviewing the debate between Destiny and Dennis Prager? Your ideology may not, like, 100% be the pain and misery of fascism, but it creates it through stagnation. You are the reason, not you personally, but you and your ideology are the reason that fascism exists and is a problem in the modern world. Because you have refused, like, categorically to take a systemic look at the issues that capitalism generates by, like, again, putting the interests of shareholders and profit first. These are directly contradictory to the interests of public health and the public good and, like, you know, fucking general societal well-being. These are directly contradictory to the interests of, like, good infrastructure. Like, God, in the United States, the car industry is so prominent that it's prevented public transit from ever being a thing. Imagine if you had that on your hands. I think you'd actually, maybe, I take it back, maybe you wouldn't be a Clintonite. If you were in America, you'd see exactly the problems of capitalism that I'm talking about, and you would know that this is a capitalism thing and not just an America thing. But this is concluded, at least so I hope. Me getting mad at a European chatter for being liberal, and me delivering the sentence of eternal, well, not eternal, but, you know, liberalism. The big thing that I wanted to highlight was, you know, everybody is memeing about the assassination attempts, or not attempt even. This should be a segment. It will be. This is fucking peak content, is what this is. The assassin is very well liked because nobody has faith in the system currently. Nobody fucking likes capitalism, and I mean nobody. Even the people that think they like capitalism will, like, look at things that are objectively the fault of capitalism and be like, oh yeah, that sucks. You know? What you like is not capitalism. What you like is life. You know? The festering of neoliberal capitalism in the 1990s and 2000s, and the 1980s as well, has created misery and suffering of a very banal sort that doesn't frequently get reported on in the news media, because the news media is also privately owned and has those same interests to perpetuate that cycle of, you know, health insurance denying claims, etc., all in service of quarterly profits, where behind the scenes tens of thousands of people are dying every year, hundreds of thousands getting sick, and the life expectancy dropping, all metrics of life, you know, plummeting. And people can see that in some form or another. Everybody isn't immediately privy to capitalists, like capitalism's systemic flaws by name, but they can see that, like, oh yeah, obviously these greedy bastards just want profit and are willing to cut corners and deny grandma her health insurance claim because she has cancer in order to do it, you know? And that's going to create more and more of these incidents. It's created a phenomenon where people have just started going around and posting the pictures of health insurance executives and be like, hey, you know, this guy right here, you know, which I find pretty funny. And there are some centrist libs, you know, Democrat chill types that are sort of denouncing this as vigilante justice. And it is actually quite poignant that the label of vigilante justice comes up, because we don't have a functioning justice system either. When I said that society has stagnated, I meant that in multiple respects, you know? It's not just the sort of health insurance industry that has stagnated. You know, you can take a look at the food, housing, tech manufacturing, and like public transit, urban infrastructure, all that sort of stuff. Everything is stagnant right now. And the result is a society where nothing works, nothing at a systemic level, which includes the justice system. You know, in a sane world, this guy, the health insurance CEO, would be rotting in prison for what he's done, for the claims that he's denied, for the people that he is responsible for killing, him and the other executives of this health insurance company. But because there is no legal mechanism of justice, people now have to take that matter into their own hands, which means political instability and violence, such as an assassination attempt. I'm not even saying necessarily that that's a bad thing, that people are taking it into their own hands. What I'm saying is that it is bad that it has gotten to that point. You know, the fact that it's being, like, any sort of justice is being administered, I guess, is better than somebody just getting away with mass social murder, right? Like, but at the same time, it would be very, very preferable if there was actually a functioning set of government institutions that was responsible to the public and not to capital interests, that was truly democratic, and that was capable of seeing industry practices like this and being like, all right, we're instantly crafting a law against this, and we're throwing the legal books at anybody that engages in this behavior. Do you know what I mean? This is the environment that makes populism so popular and so necessary. This is why everybody loves populism and nobody cares about institutionalism. You know? That's what's what on the assassination of the CEO of United Healthcare. And of course, as per the you know, my analysis earlier, where they will be perfectly fine with seeing tens of thousands die, even with a threat to themselves, if it guarantees their relative status relative to the rest of the population. The response to this by other health insurance companies was not to start pushing for Medicare for all, or start pushing to stop the cost-cutting measures and sort of meaningfully redress the issue of the private health insurance system, but rather they just tried to hide the images of all their executives and CEOs. They want to keep doing what they're doing, even if it means that their own start getting killed, because they're still getting obscenely rich at the expense of everybody else. And the only way that you can actually fix this would be with a single-payer health insurance system, and with a beginning radical transformation of well, many systems that are responsible for maintaining people's lives in society, moving away from the profit interest, challenging the interests of private capital, sort of deprivatizing essential sectors like food, medicine, education, you know, transit. And that's just to start. I blame the pharmaceutical industry for killing my mother because of the circumstances, and I would be willing to bet my bottom dollar that you are 100% correct to do so. Get that in. Anyway, can you imagine an Assassin's Creed game based on this event in the future? I can. God, that would be that'd be quite the video game. And you know, I've already seen people saying like, look, even if this isn't directly connected to like a sort of budding revolution in the moment, like right now, you could very easily see an event like this being remembered in the history books as one of the either the first shots or early warning signs of an impending revolution against like the business class and stuff like that, you know? Because this is it, like we're reaching a point of growing political consciousness in a way, you know? Like I said, people continually being fed up with a system that doesn't do anything for them. But yeah, you know, future me, cut the segment there, and I will see you all later, YouTube people. Anywho, globalize my agenda. I didn't get a chance to read that that comment about you meeting that like really anti-Semitic politician. I was trying to just focus on the like ending thoughts for that segment. I'll go back and take a look at it in a minute. Maybe once this race is done, I have an opportunity to scroll up and such. Oh shit. No, I'm gonna get a bottom spot this race probably. Dang. Okay. Reminds me, you remember the politician that made those anti-Semitic poems I mentioned a good while ago? Oh yeah, the far-right party. The leader of that far-right party who entered into a coalition with the Social Democrats. Oh boy. You know, the classic liberals working with fascists. I met him? Oh, you met him? That's funny. We said hello, shook hands, chatted for a bit. He was a pretty nice dude, at least to me in person. I'll bet he was. Plenty of, you know, a lot of far-right politicians, a lot of conservative politicians, and even a good chunk of liberal politicians are just grifters. They don't actually believe in anything, which means simultaneously, both the version of them that you met, and that was nice enough to you in person, that you shook their hands and had a nice little chat with them, and also the version of them on TV that was spitting like anti-Semitic vitriol against the Jews and whatnot. Both of them are a representation of who they are. Like that's both the real them, both of those, because they don't actually believe in anything, and you know, like their principal belief is just political power and, you know, whatever they need to do in order to get there. And talk with him about politics. He made some offhand remarks about the trial he's going through. Ah. Yeah, and that's another thing, too, is that a lot of time liberals and conservatives and, you know, people like that, you know, maybe not even just liberals and conservatives, but a lot of people make this separation between the interpersonal and the political, where they view them as mystically separate things, you know, where, like, interpersonal and political subjects don't intersect with each other somehow. A lot of politicians are nice people at heart. I don't know if I'd go that far, you know? But, you know, the point just being that, like, they, you know, they say and do what they have to, and a lot of them view it as just a performance because they are pretty vacuous, politically speaking, you know? Kind of like how I mentioned that the Democrats will shift their positions constantly. It's because they don't actually have any core beliefs. And they're just trying to find what plays best for their donors. And Republicans, it's a pretty similar story. They're just more willing to be fucking psychopaths. And some of them are, you know, a couple of them are true believers. Sockdems are anti-liberal here. And socially right-wing and economically left-wing? No, they're a Nazgul party! Fucking hell, dude. Lithuania's cooked. Yeah, donors are like Democrats. Can you try losing this election? They're like, again? They're like, yes, again. Shit, alright. pretty much an anti-lib party, which that's why they switch places, ruling the country with the Christian Democrats so much. Okay. That makes sense. I got 4th place. We'll see. God, I hope I get to move on from this shit, this vehicle. No, -3 for 4th. Alright, it's gonna be rough. Alright, here we go. How much time do you give it before Republicans try to take away free speech? They've already been making inroads on that. The TikTok ban, I was actually going to talk about this. The TikTok ban is actually advancing slowly but surely. This is actually ties into what I said about the fucking justice system not working worth a damn. That has been tied up in the court system for several months. You know, to litigate whether it's like legally allowed or not. And recently a federal circuit court, I believe it was the New York district, allowed it to go through. Like they were like, yeah, it's fine to ban TikTok. So it's possible that TikTok is going to be banned pretty soon, because even if it gets kicked up to the Supreme Court is overwhelmingly conservative, and the other justices aren't like lefties or anything. They're liberals, you know? So it's possible they'll be like, oh yeah, TikTok is literally the Chinese Communist Party. TikTok content is AIDS anyway, get that shit out of here. Yeah, in a way, it's like, yeah, you know, TikTok is fucking brain rot, but also, like, it represents a massive hub of left-leaning thought, as, you know, terminally online and brain rotted as it may be. And I think that, like, banning TikTok would do more harm than good, right? You usually don't want to just invoke the ban hammer. You know, I don't think too many people would be defending TikTok on its merits. At least not that many people. Even the people like myself who will offer some critical support for being a ideological hub of certain critical thought. It's like fucking... TikTok is a brand safe Instagram. Other way around. Instagram is brand safe, TikTok isn't. Because TikTok is like massively pro-Palestine, and that's why they're banning it. Even the reasons that I would think TikTok is good would be, in the eyes of the legal system, it would be a way in which TikTok is bad, right? Because it's like, oh, it's sowing like instability or whatever, you know? You know what I'm saying? Shit they have on Instagram is disgusting. Maybe your Instagram feed. Far more NSFW than TikTok. Again, maybe your Instagram feed. I don't know. I shouldn't have tried that. TikTok is YouTube if everybody had no incentive to create useful content. That's kind of true. Jeez, this car is so bad. Oh, nice. I dodged. Both are fucked, but my Instagram For You page is worse. Well, that's the For You page. That shit is personalized. Okay, -5. Gotta do another one. If Republicans force YouTube to block anyone left, Mr. V is cooked. Yeah, that's one thing. So, all of that to say, to get back to the topic at hand, the TikTok ban, to me, is indicative that Republicans are already making inroads, or had already been, and are continuing to make inroads to cracking down on free speech. There have been a number of free speech crackdowns in America's history, usually coinciding with wartime. You know, the more recent ones being the Vietnam War, the Iraq War, and now Israel and Gaza, where a lot of people are getting blacklisted. They are putting pressure on private institutions to ban certain people that express sentiment that's critical of Israel. For example, Twitch made the term Zionism a slur, so that I could get banned for saying the term Zionist, or saying such and such is a Zionist, when that's just an ideological descriptor. It would be like me being able to get banned for saying this person's a fascist, or this person's a Nazi. You know? So, yeah, the Republicans and the Democrats as well are participating in this, because both are captured by private capital, and the military-industrial complex are cracking down on free speech. It may be extremely brain-rotted free speech in the instance of TikTok, but the government still, like, it is still bad that the long arm of the state is reaching into the social media space to categorically ban a social media outlet, not because of any of the super brain rotted shit that's going on over there, but because of the opinions that that prevail there. The reasons that I don't like TikTok, that all of us don't like TikTok, have nothing to do with it getting banned. Because remember, Instagram still exists, and Instagram is not getting banned. It's just TikTok. The only reason that they're banning TikTok is because there's an overwhelming preponderance of socialist and pro-Palestine creators on there. Okay, you really gotta snake a lot with this thing. Instagram Reels comments try not to be racist. Impossible. Well, it is owned by Facebook, so you know. Yeah, you're gonna get some of that. Okay, I think I have a better handle on what I'm doing with this vehicle now. At least a little bit. I'm actually kind of glad the shock happened there, because I'm almost positive I would have just run into that banana anyway and it would fuck me up. Alright, I have to take the wide route here. Whew. 5th place. I had to work for that shit. Holy. Another -4. God damn. Did you see Russia firing at German helicopters? No, I didn't. And I don't really want to talk about that. Because I have a lot of other stuff written down. Yeah, I think it is actually kind of Jover for TikTok. And look, the disappearance of TikTok in one way could be indicative of something good. Like, you know, TikTok is host to a lot of brain rot, but that brain rot is also present on places like Instagram and now YouTube Shorts. People have realized, companies have realized that the model of TikTok was actually quite profitable. And so there are a lot of other places now that are beginning to resemble TikTok in kind of problematic ways. But it's the banning of TikTok is bad because this represents a massive this represents the beginning of a massive crackdown on anti-government and left-leaning sentiment on social media, which has happened before in history, but like it's going to be pretty bad. You know, obligatory, you are not immune to propaganda, and everything is about to become propaganda. Jobs require that you left Donald Trump to vote for him and the Republicans. Yeah, it's you know, you kind of joke, but there were in the 1920s there were political machines that actually operated like that. In the history books, sometimes there are instances of politics that are so out there and so obviously corrupt that it can become safe to talk about, even in like a like high school classroom environment. One of those like examples of safe politics was that there were in the 1920s there were political machines where, like you said, one of the requirements for getting jobs with certain companies that were very prominent in very populated urban areas was that you vote for such and such political candidate. You know, maybe not directly in the letter of the job posting, but you know, certainly that would be a practical requirement more often than not. And it seems like in a way, it's possible we kind of go back to that where, they're probably not going to be able to get away with directly requiring that people do that, but there's going to be a lot of propagandizing in the workplace about, more than there already has been, of course, because there has been a lot about how unions are bad, about how you should vote for Republicans if you're a patriot and whatever, and how, like, you should stand with Israel if you support America or something like that. Like, some of the worst circumstances that we saw in the immediate aftermath of America declaring war on Iraq are going to resurface in the Trump presidency. Finally, I can move on from this shit-ass cart. Be right back. I'm gonna go make lunch. Yeah, no problem. Don't worry about it. Okay. All right. Oh, I'm gonna be yeah. Let's be Wario for the heavy carts. Start with the standard cart large. Random. The other thing that I wanted to highlight, or another thing that I wanted to talk about, was one of the examples of capitalism by virtue of the profit incentive, creating environments of mass suffering, right? On Blue Sky, there was a post this morning that I saw where, somebody had posted a picture of a field of apples, field full of apples just laying there. And they said, this is where, this is where apples go when they can't be sold, when farms produce apples and whatever, they take them to market, in the grocery store or wherever. They can't sell all of them, not always. So what do they do with the remaining apples? They put them in a giant field and they let them rot. That's it. And I saw that and was reminded of how the food industry at large operates, because it's not just apples. When grocery stores or restaurants can't sell the food that they have, if they still have stuff stocking the store shelves, they don't they don't donate it, they don't give it to somebody, they don't sometimes they do mark it down if it's like, oh yeah, this food is we kind of need to get it off the shelf so we can stock something more fresh. I've actually bought food. I've taken advantage of them marking down food that's been there for a little while. But for a lot of the food, if they can't sell it, they just throw it away. Perfectly good food, but nobody bought it. Maybe they couldn't afford to, maybe whatever it was. And it is massively wasteful. And the reason that companies do that, the reason that grocery stores and restaurants do that, is because it would be better for their bottom line. This is just a matter of passively playing to their incentives. It's better for their bottom line if nobody has that food than if somebody got that food for free. Because if somebody got that food for free, that's that much more food that they wouldn't need to buy next time. Does that make sense? In fact, there are some personal horror stories. That image on Blue Sky being one of them, but some experience from my dad and I believe a friend of mine in college, being some other ones. My dad used to work at a fast food restaurant when he was in high school. Pretty common thing for a lot of people when they're teenagers in America. It's like, oh yeah, you work at a fast food place and whatever else, right? And this fast food place would have extra food at the end of the day that they wouldn't be able to sell. Still good. It's not like the food that gets thrown out, it's not like rotting as they're throwing it out. It's still good food. You can still eat it. And one of the policies at the fast food place that my dad worked at was, yeah, you're not allowed to have the food that we're going to throw out because it's ours. You can't have it. It's like, fucking what? You're going to throw it out. That means you're forfeiting the food, right? This is a standard practice in the food industry, and it leads to billions of tons of food waste. It would be so hard for me to not call them a demon as a joke. Oh, you don't even need to joke. This is demonic behavior, deserving of the Antichrist or some shit like that. And to add on top of this, this common practice, in the pandemic, food insecurity hit like a fucking truck. Food insecurity increased during the pandemic to all-time highs. And people started to figure out that grocery stores and restaurants were throwing away perfectly good food that they could just take home, maybe clean off the plastic that it was wrapped in. This food hadn't even been touched or unpacked in any form. It was still, perfectly good in like storefront conditions. You could take that stuff home and eat it. You could make dinner out of it. So what a lot of really poor or vulnerable or sometimes homeless people started doing was they started dumpster diving. Usually the cartoon image of dumpster diving is you find like a half-eaten banana or sandwich or whatever, and you're like, oh, sweet. But no, you can find perfectly good, still packaged food in the dumpster sometimes. And so people started doing that a lot because grocery stores were not, I think that it was something like the sales on grocery store food started to decrease. And in response to this, there was like a very vigorous conversation that was sparked about, oh shit, people are clearly suffering and having to go to the dumpster to find food. And like, what's this? There's some perfectly good food in the dumpster. Why is that not going to the food bank or something, right? You would assume, if we were in the sane world, that this would prompt some kind of discussion at the government level about, in improving the efficiency of food distribution systems and stuff like that, so that people who need food can get food, and so that, like, people don't have to fucking dumpster dive. But as you may have noticed by the premise, I said if we were in a sane world, and we are not in a sane world, we're in a capitalist world. So what happened was a lot of local governments, cities, towns, counties, started actually calling up the police and posting them outside of the dumpsters. There were cops in the pandemic that were guarding the dumpsters of thrown out food that was still perfectly good, still packaged, safe to eat. Guarding the dumpsters outside of grocery stores and restaurants from people who were hungry and needed something to eat and were going dumpster diving as a result. Dumpster diving isn't even illegal, mind you. It is not illegal to go and pick through the dumpster and take something out. It's gross and unhygienic, but it is not illegal to reach into the trash can and pick something up out of the trash can. That's not against the law. They had the police posted at the dumpsters, the garbage bins, to enforce a law that doesn't exist. Because the law is a fucking illusion in liberal democracy. There's a meme about, like, the law in its majestic equality forbids rich and poor alike from behaviors that only poor people exclusively engage in. But in this case, it's not even the law doing that. The state took the initiative to use the mechanisms of law enforcement to prevent people from doing something that was completely legal. Specifically because if people figured out that there was a reliable or even semi-reliable way to get safe-to-consume food from the dumpster that could rival, like, grocery shopping in its efficacy, because you're getting free food and not having to sacrifice as much of, quality as the cartoons might have you believe, then that puts the grocery stores under additional scrutiny, and it sort of threatens their ability to make quarterly profits and to make those growth targets. So, as a result, the government, acting quickly to safeguard the interests of private capital against the hungry masses, had the police heroically guard the dumpsters from, hungry dumpster divers. Great job. With your help, you've ensured that society will starve for several more months. Nice. I don't understand why the government can make laws. can't make laws to make it so companies have to offer their old food to charities before throwing it out. That is a law that the government could just make. You know, they can do that. They simply choose not to. Because the liberal institutions of government, the priority of them is not to ensure the prosperity and well-being of society. Rather, it is to suppress the contradictions of capital and labor for as long as possible, to basically let the capital class have their cake and eat it too. The government is like the enforcer of the capital class. You know, they just chose not to. And of course, that would be a difficult law to enforce. You know, in concept, obviously, it's a good idea. In some ways, it might be difficult to enforce. But again, such a law would actually step on the toes of private capital. So no law would ever get passed. I've gained VR. I don't know why I'm on the same vehicle. Why didn't the rich people make it illegal? Well, they didn't need to. All they had to do, all the county had to do, was refer to some nebulous ordinance that may or may not have made it illegal already, and post the police there anyway. You may notice the police crack down on plenty of shit that's not illegal. For example, sleeping in your own home, or you know, walking on the sidewalk at night. They choose to enforce these selectively, these non-laws. But understand that the police are the law. The law is simply that which you will be punished for engaging in. And the police and the state can punish you for doing literally anything at any time if they decide that you are deserving of that. Yeah, if you are poor, you don't have legal rights in the United States. It is one of the most recognizable critiques of liberalism that the poor are an outgroup that the law binds but does not protect, and the rich people are an in-group that the law protects but does not bind. You know? Capitalism increasingly, this is a capitalism thing, because this is all contingent on the interests of private capital sowing suffering in the masses and needing to be defended from an increasingly angry and hungry mass of people. Capitalism becomes increasingly lawless, where laws designed by people of good faith, at times, laws are meant to, in a way, promote the common good. But the common good often contravenes the interests of private capital. So some laws will have to be disregarded, and some things will have to be enforced where there is no law dictating that there be enforcement of that, you know? Such as, you know, like dumpster diving. Not illegal in plenty of places, but it was still enforced in plenty of places as though it was illegal. What's up, Big V? Yeah, Lady Justice is only blind to the poor. Lady Justice is very capable of discerning who is poor and who is rich, you know? And again, this is not just a United States thing. The problem may not be as bad in countries in Europe, but I ask you, when was the last time that a billionaire or the shareholders of a large company faced any meaningful legal consequence for malfeasance and wrongdoing? When was the last time that a billionaire exploited child labor in the developing world, or you know, mass exploited, you know, the workers, fucking stole wages, or any shit like that, or you know, embezzled money from public services and whatever, and actually went to prison for a long time for it? I guarantee most people would not be able to answer that, because there hasn't really been an appreciable number of instances of that happening. The exception proves the rule. If you can find an instance of that happening, congratulations, that's one. Unfortunately, this is partly where I also succumb to the neoliberal brain rot of capitalist realism. Because it's hard for me to imagine. You know, I've grown up under this system my whole life. Like, the only system that I have ever seen or directly been exposed to in the course of my life is late stage capitalism, with all of its inglorious flaws and inanities and you know, inhumanities. Bars. Uh, it's hard for me to imagine a world that's different because I've never seen it. You know? But a different world, a better world, you know, where food is not distributed on the basis of private capital profit every 3 months is possible. There are better food distribution systems out there. We have the technology and the supply chains to make it happen. We just need to, there's just a desperate need to change the relations of power and property to make it more feasible for that stuff to happen. Yeah, we're trapped in the domain of liberalism. Oh yeah, liberals also, yeah, Gotron, what you're referring to, liberals a lot of times, and it's not just a liberal thing, a lot of people do this, engage in what's called the just world fallacy. A lot of people don't want to believe that the world is so fucked up that a billionaire could just, like, I don't know, casually be the head of a company and with all the shareholders, like, engage with child slavery in sub-Saharan Africa, or even, you know, believe that there is slavery in sub-Saharan Africa, so they'll just deny it. You know, it's much easier to deny, especially when you're not frequently confronted with it straightforwardly, that something bad is happening, than it is to confront the potential wide-ranging implications of that bad thing. You know? Like, we learn in school that slavery was abolished in 1865. I gotta break it to you guys, it wasn't actually abolished. Slavery still exists as permitted by the U.S. Constitution as punishment for a crime. If you like, fucking, Slomo XD, welcome back to chat. If you steal a toothbrush from a convenience store, the state can just make you a slave. That's part of the 13th Amendment. And, in fact, that's only slavery as it is literally recognized by name in the law. It's also entirely possible and commonplace for companies to employ sweatshop labor or slave labor in the third world, or sometimes even in the United States, where people are paid wages so low that it is basically comparable to an eternal state of servitude. You know, that, like, they are so impoverished by the demand of their employer that they have no hope of ever escaping from it. I ask you, in what way is that different meaningfully than slavery? You know? That's one of the main component parts, one of the main features of modern capitalism, is that trying to lower the labor costs of any industrial operation or anything like that, basically to the point of slavery. That is the cheapest possible level at which industry can operate, when you are literally not paying workers anything, when you have slave labor. Capitalism is a race down to that point. The capitalists would say that situation, they made the choice to be a slave. Not exactly. Yeah, that is most frequently the argument. If anybody decides to, in any way, you know, maybe a little bit confront the reality of there being slave labor, the go-to defense is that, well, they chose to take that job. I gotta break it to you, no, they didn't. You know, even in a place like the United States, the choice was already made for them, de facto, where, you know, it's possible there weren't a whole lot of opportunities in the area. It's possible that the employers have dirt on them, would threaten to rat them out to immigration services or whatever. A lot of sweatshop labor in the United States employs undocumented migrants. And in some more blatant situations, the coercion is a lot harder. It's a lot more blatant. In sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia, a lot of times there will be warlords and like company gangs that will control a given area or town, and the gun to the back of people's heads, should they decide to not take a sweatshop job, is a lot less metaphorical than it would be in somewhere like the United States, where we have a lot more comfortable standard of living, comparatively speaking. You know? This thing is not very fast. Heard a great quote a couple of days ago. The amount of rights you give to your prisoners determines how long it takes for a dictatorship to take place. That's a pretty good metric to refer to, yeah. That, you know, you can judge a society in a lot of ways by how it treats prisoners, those who have had their rights taken away, or those who the state has deemed to be criminals. Because in a dictatorship, the bar is not very high to determine who is a criminal and who's not. You know, that's why a lot of times the groundwork of fascist dictatorship is laid before a coup d'etat even happens, right? Like, you know, the extreme far right politician only determines, oh yeah, now there are more things that are illegal and can make you a criminal. Whereas it was already the case, it could have been already the case, that if you're a criminal, you basically had no rights, you know? Despite the fact that society doesn't understand consent in all situations. Well, yeah, that, you know, that does suck, but it's hard to hold it against people when consent is constantly being manufactured by malicious actors who do very much understand what consent is and how to artificially generate it in the minds of a very large population in order to better realize their draconian aims, you know? People don't really understand what consent is in a societal sense because it has been drilled into them that whatever happens to you is legitimate, you know? That consent has been manufactured. But anyways, all that stemmed from me having seen a post on Blue Sky where somebody said, like, yeah, you know, I was driving past this field today. It was a field full of apples, and, you know, it was one of those fields where they take the apples that they weren't able to sell, and they just toss them there to let them rot, you know? Like, they don't give them away. They don't give them to a charity. They don't send them to a different, you know, means of distribution. If they can't sell food, they just throw it out and prevent anybody from getting it for free. Are you waiting for a whole discussion because of apples? Yeah, it's just one of those, you know, it's if you were a certain genre of shitposter, you could very easily see that and make the meme of, like, me seeing you know, that picture of a field of apples, because it's like, it's just a picture, and then me being like the Joker being like, this says a lot about society, or something like that. But it's true. No, I didn't. That was sketchy as hell, but, you know, again, making it work. What? They made it across the bridge? Oh my god, Nintendo. You're good at designing, and I like it, but I also hate it sometimes, because it made me get hit by that red shell. This is a great place to snake. I'm just gonna use this here. Please get me up there. Okay. Decent enough bullet bill. This is actually pretty good. If I can hang on to this, I'm going to take the shortcut. Nice. No. My game in a car, my tires are watermelons? Oh, interesting. Damn it! I didn't wait. I didn't wait long enough. He's got a bullet bill. I'm probably gonna get past the line. Maybe not. Looks like life hates you. Well, yeah. I mean, I picked the. I'm driving as a lot of really, really bad vehicles, and this is probably the worst heavyweight vehicle, even worse than the Piranha Prowler. Speed is a very important stat in Mario Kart Wii. It is not, contrary to what some top players and you know, game experts might say. I don't believe it is the most important stat, but it is very important, right? Mini turbo is also really important, which this vehicle does have, but you know, it just doesn't have speed, and that cripples it. Which will win, the heaviest or lightest in this game? Heaviest. Weight is also a very important stat. In fact, I would say that weight might be more important than speed for online racing. Now, for time trials, speed and mini turbo are the two most important stats. But for online, I believe it would be weight and speed in that order. Because if you're a heavy vehicle, you can adopt the strategy of being slower and hanging out mostly in the back of the pack. But ultimately, once you get to the middle or the head of the pack, your ability to stay there is largely determined, if not by speed, then by your ability to resist being bumped by other vehicles. Thus, being heavy really benefits you. Whereas even if you're fast, if you have a lighter vehicle, then it's possible that you are, you know, you're like a glass cannon and you don't have much staying power, you know? Yeah, there's a number of like good there's a number of stats that really matter in Mario Kart Wii. Unfortunately, the one stat that doesn't matter is acceleration. Acceleration really doesn't matter for much. But yes, drift, weight, speed, and mini turbo are all very important stats in this game. And the next one down, I believe, to a lesser degree, uh, off-road is also pretty important, because there are some tracks that are largely composed of off-road terrain. You know, think Sherbet Land and the Magic Cruiser and stuff. I think I'm lagging a lot. Damn it. Ow! Yeah, there's a reason the Quacker is considered bad. It has decent mini turbo, but it is slow and it is very, very lightweight. Even though, you know what's funny? The Quacker is still one of the better vehicles in the game. It's not as good as some of the faster karts, but it is better than most karts and even a lot of bikes, because it is an inside drifting bike. The mechanics of Mario Kart Wii are so tailored to bikes that drift inside that even something like the Quacker can have a decent enough time cutting it online, where something like the off-roader or even the Piranha Plower would be much more hard-pressed to make it work. Or even just the standard bike, because the standard bikes are outside drifting vehicles. You know, inside drift and wheelie are such a good combo that even a vehicle with as lackluster stats as the Quacker becomes pretty all right. Ow. I think, in fact, I think one of the worst vehicles in the game would be the Cheap Charger. The Cheap Charger is a lightweight cart, and that is truly a cocktail of stuff that does not help you when you're in a vehicle in Mario Kart Wii. It's outside drift, it's a cart, it's light. You know, it doesn't turn well. Doesn't have anything going for it. What are you talking about when you say outside and inside drifting? I'm glad you asked. So if you notice the way that the off-roader drifts, the normal Mario Kart drift, where you sort of, well, drift like that, that is what is known as outside drift. Inside drift, for some vehicles in Mario Kart Wii, you know, if you're on a bike, you hop, and then it's like your character's leaning. It's like a, I guess we call them crotch rockets, where, you know, you're leaning really far forward on the bike, as opposed to like a dirt bike. And the inside drift enables you to take turns a lot tighter. Inside drift and wheeling in Mario Kart Wii is a massive synergetic boost to your vehicle. Whereas the vehicles that drift in the traditional way, where they sort of swing outwards and it's like you're on a dirt track, you know, driving a like off-road car or whatever, it's a lot worse. I'll show you in this next race. When I start a drift, you'll see what I mean when I say outside drift, because your vehicle swings to the outside of the turn. Most of the Flame Runners, the Flame Runner is an inside drifting vehicle. Look how I'm drifting right now. You know? Watch, as I start a drift, you'll notice I swing to the outside a bit. That's outside drift. Oops. I'll see if there's a part where the... Yeah, you see that guy drifting up there? How he's, like, leaning in to the turn? That's inside drift, and it allows you to take turns a lot tighter than you would be able to otherwise. Even though I played Mario Kart, I never noticed that. It is a very niche thing, because it's just Mario Kart Wii that has this mechanic. You know, in Mario Kart 7, they removed outside, or they removed inside drifting vehicles. And in Mario Kart 8 and 8 Deluxe, there are some bikes that have a inside drift-esque mechanic, but it is much more of a hybrid of the two drifts, where you still do, well, drift to the outside of the track in a way, you know, before you get the inside drift thing. You know, so that it only really exists in this form in Mario Kart Wii. And it's not on that many vehicles. There are only 2 heavyweight bikes that are inside drift. There are, I think, 3 medium weight bikes that drift inside, and there are 4 lightweight bikes that drift inside. And each class has 12 vehicles. So combined, that's, let's see, 9 out of the 36 vehicles in this game are inside drifting vehicles. This golden mushroom ain't going to be able to save me. Yeah, Mario Kart 8 and 8 Deluxe has niche inside drift, but even that's kind of like a halfway. In those games, you kind of drift outside a little bit before you get the inside drift. And it's not as good as it is in this game. Because in that game, you actually want the outside drift. And you also don't have wheeling. There's no wheeling in Mario Kart 8 and 8 Deluxe, because they saw exactly how broken that was in this game and how much it invalidated a lot of other vehicles. And they decided, okay, we don't want to go back to that. That track is really not good for the off-roader. Because there's only one shortcut. And also the off-roader is just a bad vehicle. You saw how much time I lost. You saw how I, like, wasn't getting that bad of item luck, and even with that, it still wasn't even nearly enough. That's because the Flame Runners are just that much faster. When you're in a wheelie, you can go up to 10 or 12 kilometers per hour faster than just regular driving speed. But karts can't do that. They're limited to the regular driving speed and the mini turbo speed. Sure, they can get like orange and even purple mini turbos in this game, in this mod pack, but even then, that's not enough to put them on par with bikes. Like, I believe my red mini turbo speed is slower than the speed of the Flame Runner just wheeling. Yeah, I'm going 93, we'll say about 94 kilometers per hour when I'm in the red mini turbo in this vehicle. And the Flame Runner, when it's wheeling, not in a mini turbo state, but just wheeling, goes 97 kilometers per hour. You know? God, this... Ooh, this is really, unfortunate. And I can't snake on that section. The only tool that carts really have that allow them to keep up with bikes on straightaways is snaking, and you can't do that on this track. Son of a bitch, I lost my star. People are here for the political commentary and not the gameplay. Yeah, when I started talking about Mario Kart Wii, view count went down. That's exactly as intended, baby. I mean, not really. I didn't intend it one way or the other, but I'm glad that people are here to hear me talk about politics. In which case, actually, yeah, Xylan, I can catch you up on the South Korea coup attempt. President Yoon Suk Yeol was like incel president. It got elected by a lot of like right-leaning young men, you know, parentheses incels, and as a result, like, I guess decided, you know what, let's do the military dictatorship or something like that, either to appease them or to placate the capital interests and whatnot, as the forces of reaction are wont to do. But he overestimated the willingness of the public and the media cycle to abide by a return to the military dictatorship of South Korea, because the entire media apparatus was covering it like it was this big, disastrous, like potentially disastrous political thing that like nobody wanted to happen. And all the population like went out in mass protests and stuff to you know, well, protest against him doing that. And so like it resulted in the members of parliament even barricading the parliament doors from the military to stop them from getting in. There were people scaling the military barricades and stuff like that. Yeah, in fact, you know, that was the rationale. He was like, Trump did this, so I should probably be able to get away with it. But he didn't anticipate his own party to turn against him. He didn't anticipate the media to turn against him. He didn't expect the population to be as active as they were. And then 4 hours after it started, it was all done. He lifted the martial law, and his ass is probably cooked. Imagine if Trump broke that guy out. Trump doesn't care enough about South Korea to break that guy out. He doesn't have much reason to. Honestly, Trump lending help to the South Korean president that attempted a military coup with the military would probably get him in more hot water than if he just continued the course, because the United States, funnily enough, the United States' commentary on its own internal politics is extremely, like, conciliatory to the right. But when the United States covers military coups in other countries, we tend to, like, view it with a typical kind of, like, oh yeah, wow, a military coup, that's actually really reactionary and dictatorial and, like, pretty bad. So Trump extending, like, a helping hand to Yoon Suk Yeol in South Korea would probably have landed him in more trouble than anything he could ever do in the United States. All right, if there was ever a track that I would have a shot on, it's this one. Zed, stop stream sniping. Yeah, stream sniper. Oh, I know exactly what he's gonna do. Oh, or maybe not. Okay, that's a different guy. Alright, I'm gonna chain these. Please? Nice. Remember the one Pokemon game that had the Pokemon that looked like Trump's face? Oh yeah, Yungoos and Gumshoes from Generation 7. +1, we did it! Alright, time to get my ass off of this shitty vehicle. Man, alright, change combo. Get me the best heavyweight vehicle, or one of. Finally, okay, real vehicle. Okay. What else did I see recently? Oh yeah, the protests in Georgia. I only found it because I was playing a streamer I knew joined, so when I looked at the MKW channel say hi, I saw the fucking JAR reaction. That was a wild video. Yeah, you know what's funny? There are some things that I would do differently in that video if I did it today. JAR is fucking exposed. Yeah, you know what? I don't think I exposed him enough. I don't think I exposed him hard enough. Because he was very dishonest about the way that he talked about those movies, you know? In fact, I thought it would be interesting because, like, oh yeah, he's a bigger YouTuber, and I'm a smaller YouTuber. This is kind of the thing that you do. It was a viewer suggestion, you know, why not? You know, react content and stuff. But what ended up happening was it was kind of like I was the one giving him the attention. Does that make sense? Like, I was giving him exposure because he was so petty as to actually name search on YouTube. Like, big red flag right there. He name searched to find my video and left a comment. And, you know, like, I feel like I shouldn't have done that at all because he was just, like, literally waiting for the opportunity. If I did it at all, if I were to do it again, I think I would take the trouble to watch some other videos on the movies that he talked about first, because one thing that became clear very quickly after I made that video, after I had seen his stuff, or that video and reacted to it, and once I had seen, like, some information on the movies that he was talking about, he was lying. There were some things, like, I got some shades of this when he was talking about The Force Awakens, because there was some stuff that was like, okay, that's just wrong. But I shouldn't have taken his word for anything on the movies that I hadn't seen, because he had, like, because he's doing the anti-woke shtick, he had, like, a very pronounced incentive to not be honest about the movies that he was talking about. Yeah, I am talking about Just a Robot. You know, at the time, I was not as prepared for him to be a dishonest actor, which he was. Like, that movie about the elemental people and whatnot, he actually did have a more or less progressive take on. He was lying about its contents. The whole, like, it being, like, about segregation or whatever. No, it's about, like, immigration. Is written by somebody whose family was, like, from Romania or something. And so I was like, okay, I was too charitable to this guy from the get-go. The premise of me doing that video was already too charitable, because I assumed that he would be telling the factual truth about the events that occur in the movies that he's referring to. But he wasn't. He was actually making up things from those movies that didn't occur. Does that make sense? And one of those was in Star Wars The Force Awakens. In fact, I think that's the best segment in that whole video when I'm talking about that, because I like very correctly identify that he's making up a cuckold fantasy to be mad at. Like at that point where he was, like, describing how Rey, like, just somehow knows about the Millennium Falcon. Like, motherfucker, she knows about old Imperial tech, old, like, ships. That's her job. That's her life. She does that to survive, you know? Of course she would know, like, the ins and outs of a spaceship. She plunders those things and scavenges for rare parts day in and day out. This is established in the story. It's like the scene made perfect sense in context, but he made up connections to the other story that weren't there. He made up that, like, oh, Rey just has to be better than Luke. Fucking no, she isn't. Unironically, Luke in A New Hope is more of a Mary Sue, I guess Gary Stu or whatever, than Rey is in The Force Awakens. Now, there's plenty of critique to be had about the sequels, and I will be very open to that for The Force Awakens and for The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker and stuff like that. But he's inventing a critique that isn't real. Like I said, he made up something that is adjacent to a fantasy of cuckoldry in order to get mad at The Force Awakens on some kind of anti-woke grounds. He's just mad that there's a female character that is, in his eyes, more skilled at something than a male character, which I don't know that she is. Sure, she's probably more skilled at being a mechanic than Luke because she has more experience, which just makes sense. That's like a one-to-one thing. But, like, again, it's just this weird, like, I think he's just mad that there's a woman in the movie that's good at something. You know? And that was like the part that I was best able to pin him on because I've seen The Force Awakens. You know? I'm a Star Wars boy. Also, this track is great, and I got sniped. I think Luke cares less about that than just a robot does. Yeah, literally everybody in the movie doesn't care as much about that as just a robot does. Like, he cares more than anybody has ever cared about that shit. To be like, oh, wow, why did they have to make Rey so much better than my boy Luke or something? This is just like him being like, wow, you're so much better than Luke. Like, fucking what? Like, you know, it's like I said in the video. He's inventing a dramatic tension of like somebody being better than somebody else that never existed and never will. Insert the meme about the Native Americans, like a white man has been here. How can you tell? Cuck fetish. Hopefully I got a good ride. No, oh, damn it. Alright. Gotta take this wide. Yeah, rip. A useful person to help me write winner. How do you... What? Right, where's our autocorrection? If you search JAR on YouTube now, you won't even find his channel. It's just the expose videos. Yeah. Serious right wing confirmed. That's true. But yeah, that's the JAR defended Cinnabar Predator and deleted several videos upon backlash from that and other shit. Oh, good to know that he's also just a massive like piece of shit in other areas of life and not just that he's a dishonest media critic who hopped on the anti-woke bandwagon when it was popular. Wow, I actually feel super vindicated about my thoughts about that guy. This is why when you're trying to make friends, the easiest way is to go queer. True! The straights are not okay. Let it be known. Controller adapter fell on the ground. Oh, I actually feel like I might be able to get through all the carts today. If I really fucking lock in. I follow YouTube commentary, so they jumped on that drama as soon as it happened. Ah, drama frog. Now, obviously, for your mental health, like, for purposes of your mental health, I would encourage that you only very sparingly interact with drama, if at all. But it is useful sometimes to have drama frogs in chat that know about drama that I do not. Precisely because I don't know about it. So if somebody refers to something, they can, like, explain what it means. So accepting and nice, I'm surprised they're villainized at all. Yeah, it's just because they represent a deviation from sexual, like, authoritarian sexual norms. That's really it. Most queer people that I've met are very pleasant people. They're very nice. The reason that they're villainized is because Republicans, like, the entire identity of the far right is around paterfamilias, which is a very toxic model of heterosexual sexuality, where the man literally has life and death power over his family, and the women and children are quite literally non-persons. Like, it's fucked up. And that hierarchy is threatened by the existence of queer people. So even if they're the nicest fucking people you've met on the planet, it is the life mission of the fascists to exterminate them, you know? In fact, partly because of that fact, it is their life mission. Because, you know, if everybody's so nice to each other, how am I going to get away with, like, perpetuating a system where, you know, statistically speaking, a large percentage of the population is treated as non-human, right? Like, women and children account for what? Probably like 2/3 of the population, if not more. Is it funny you can tell which ideology they are based on which porn they consume? Yes, it is very funny. It is very rational. There's a rational analysis to be engaged in there. But ultimately, I defer to the shorthand that all politics is sex and all sex is politics. You know, you can tell a lot about somebody's politics based on their relationship to sexuality and porn. Yay, +1. And a lot of fascism, in fact, the entire ideology of fascism, because it is based off of sexual control, it is very good at weaponizing sexual insecurity. Sexual insecurity that would be most plainly laid bare in pornography. Hence, somebody who is gorging on cuck porn is very likely to be a fascist because they're getting off to their own sexual insecurity, which is like it is a perfect storm for fascists to take that and be like, your sexual insecurity can be alleviated and your cuckoldry abated if only you get rid of the minority group that is cucking you. Never mind the fact that that's not happening, and also that's not happening, and also, again, that's not happening. Right? And likewise, people who have a very healthy relationship with their sexuality and who don't consume cuck porn are likely to not be fascists. You know, fascism is the ideology that most reliably leads to sexual abuse and sexual insecurity. So somebody who is very secure in their sexuality and is not, like, doesn't have abusive tendencies, it's almost impossible that they would be a fascist. You know? Not like at heart in any event. Right wing is so insecure, if you step on their toes in the wrong way, they punch themselves in the face. Yeah, it like, fucking... There are conservatives, like, I'm sure you guys have seen the infamous picture on Twitter of the high school football player and his cheerleader girlfriend, like, hugging on the field, which, I mean, you know, it's a cute picture and whatnot. But then there's like a guy, the guy that posted the picture is like a neo-Nazi or whatever, and he just captioned it with, "This is what the Jews took from you." Like, fucking what? Why is that the thing you're thinking of in this moment? Like, when presented with this photograph, you know? Yeah, what they tried to make it into something that it isn't. And like I said in that one longer clip on my Twitch channel, when I said that, like, sexual revolution is for men and women because this hurts men, that, like, the ideology that promises that men will be, like, put on top is only alleviating the sexual, is only not alleviating, it is only worsening the sexual insecurity that men so desperately want to address, that people need to have addressed in order to live a healthy life, you know? Oh, let's go, baby. Please pass. Fuck yeah, +9. You know, the fascism as an ideology worsens the exact insecurities that it promises alienated young men that it will fix. By people turning into incels and engaging in that cuck fetish shit, that imagined cuckoldry shit where there's like a tall 6'3" chiseled jaw black Giga Chad that's fucking their wife or wife to be or whatever. Like, the insecurity that produces that is perpetuated by the ideology that promises most directly on those terms to address it. You know? We'll get rid of all the Jews, and that will stop your wife from being fucked by the Jews. Never mind the fact that they are the ones that created that image in the first place. They created the insecurity that they are then promising the solution for, the fascists. And Just a Robot is part of that cycle. He is both part of the consent manufacturing of the fascist machine to create that sexual insecurity among his audience, because, you know, a lot of incels are radicalized through YouTube videos. And he is himself one of those incels that will just remain insecure because of that ideology, which he himself is now peddling. It's a vicious cycle. Anywho. This concludes, I guess, that episode of me psychosexually analyzing fascists, and in this instance particularly, Just a Robot. Because I do believe that he is at least latently a fascist. He certainly bears all the markers of the irrational sexual worldview that the fascist holds, you know? This vehicle is actually doing surprisingly well for me on this track. Like, I'm genuinely kind of surprised. Okay. Got him. Alright. Third? Fourth? L political stances plus L morals equals JAR. Yeah, true. Plus no media literacy plus L plus ratio plus L again. Dang it, I kind of choked at the end there with that race. I'm gonna sincerely try to get through all the heavyweight vehicles. There's only two more. It's just this one and then the honey coop. Is a shroomless cut? I don't know how to do. I know how to do the shroomless cut, but not on this fucking vehicle. I know how to do the shroomless cut on mock bike, but I don't know how to do it on jet setter. It's honestly, it's the one thing that I don't like too much about that track is that shroomless shortcut, because there's a skill curve and it's not obvious. Honestly, it reminds me of a lot of the flaws that plague CTGP tracks. You know, that there's like the shroomless shortcuts that you have to know the track and it basically guarantees you the win. That shroomless cut cuts off an entire turn. You gain a ton of time taking it, and you have to like know the track pretty well in order to do it. I'm okay with some of the shroomless cuts in this game that are not difficult. You know, because there's usually a pretty well-designed risk-reward, where if you take the shroomless cut, maybe you don't get an item. And the shroomless cut is also not very hard to do at all, and it's very obvious. You don't have to, like, be a god gamer at the track just to successfully do it, you know? I do it with the shroom. Yeah, I do it with the shroom as well. I think I remember, like, on stream, I, like, basically said, fuck it, we'll do it live, and I kind of figured out how to do it shroomless on stream one time. Oh. Yeah, that ramp is a shortcut. This thing's mini turbo is great. This thing really benefits from having the purple mini turbo, because the Jet Setter is like the kart version of the Spear. It has a very short mini turbo. Yeah, I just sent it. Fucking Geronimo, you know. So yeah, like, I'm keeping up with the Flame Runners decently okay. Because this card is really fast. I'm gonna use this here. Nice. I'm a fucking god gamer with this thing. No! Okay. Use this here. Snake. Yes. Ow! No, come on! I was doing so good. I was driving so good. No, I didn't get a box. Rip. Oh, dude, Comrade on Wario as well. Let's go. He's Heracross on my screen. Because I love Heracross. Oh, baby. Really good item to pull. Give me this. Yes! Fourth place? Maybe. Maybe I'll get something from that. What? Why is it dropping me down to 5th? Somebody in this room... Oh, it's Player. Player is, using scripts, I think. Somebody either has a get certain placement every time script, or somebody has, like, a 7-second lag switch. Like, it's insane. Because I got that placement by a comfortable margin on both ends. The guy in 3rd was decently far ahead of me. The guy in 5th was decently far behind me. Like, I was very firmly 4th place. Dang. Anywho, as long as I'm still here, there is more, like, politics to discuss, right? Starting with, actually, something, again, Euro bros will enjoy. And non-Americhads will be eating good for. And that is the protests in Georgia. Based Georgians, even though they are, most of them are probably liberal-leaning, they are forgiven because their cause is democracy and their enemy is fascism. And they are protesting in the streets, and holy shit, Eastern European politics goes so hard, dude. Like, not even kidding. Like, I'm sure we've all seen the video of that guy who has a Gatling Roman candle gun. You know, like, he's got a fucking thing that's shooting Roman candles, but it's on, like, repeat fire. It's, like, shooting a ton of them at the same time. And, I fucking love that. You know, there's clashing between protesters and police. People are really not happy with the Georgian government right now, because, well, it's pretty blatantly a pro-Putin government that's not, like, very in line with the aspirations of most Georgians. You know, a lot of Georgians want to join the European bloc because to them it represents, like, liberal democracy and economic opportunity and stuff. Which, I mean, I hate to break it to them, but they're kind of descending into fascism right now. But regardless, I think the aspiration is valid. The aspiration to not being part of Russia's socio-economic sphere is a valid one because, you know, Russia being a fascist state controlled by the oligarchs and whatnot, you know, that's not typically very good for people. I don't know what to say about it other than that the protests are happening and stuff. It seems like they are like they're not going to have a very easy time. Thankfully, the government isn't going to have a very easy time because of how genuinely felt this sentiment is. Like it's gonna take more than just a couple crackdowns to actually address these protests and to sort of quell uh, domestic domestic unrest. You know. Basically, what I'm saying is I think I see this taking potentially a similar path to like the Euromaidan and similar protest movements. It's possible that it doesn't really succeed, which is unfortunately, not too out of the ordinary given the degree of institutional entrenchment that fascism has in countries like Russia and its satellite, nations. But regardless, I support them. And I think that it's very cool. The Georgian protests, genuinely, they have the sauce that American protests could never. American civil society is so dead compared to countries like France, South Korea, Georgia, like all these places where you see regular and militant protest movements and activism against a hostile government, against, governments that they'll just openly say, yeah, this has been captured by the oligarchs and they don't care about us and we need to assert our own interests, and like, the people and the oligarchs have different interests and whatever. And then in America, things are much quieter because the capture of, well, the whole society by oligarchs is so much more thorough. Not to bring it back to the pessimism I have for America, but I wanted to highlight that there's a degree of optimism I have for countries where the fascists are in power, because, at a time of immense institutional skepticism and distrust, when fascism is the face of those institutions, people will very readily distrust and be skeptical of fascism. And I think that's great. And that's what we're seeing in Georgia, I believe. Especially because in Georgia, it's made much easier by the fact that fascism is being represented. The ideology of fascism is being represented by a foreign country. Russia is the face of fascism, is the flag of fascism in Georgia. Where in the United States, the flag of fascism is the United States still, if that makes sense. The fascism in the United States is mostly homegrown. And by that I mean homegrown in the sense that American billionaires are the ones supporting it, in addition to the Russian billionaires. But like in Georgia, it's very clear that like there's not much authentic Georgian support for fascism and for like a pro-Putin government and stuff. And that really helps. I do now, because of like how tired a lot of the like Russian scandal language and rhetoric is in the United States. I don't know if that's a valid path for anti-fascists here, but we'll see. Either way, I think, this is one of those protest movements where even if it doesn't succeed, there is the opportunity for things to get better in Georgia. It would be kind of hard for things to really get worse than we would have already expected them to be under like a pro-Putin government. You know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of like, what do the protesters really have to lose at this point? Maybe. Third place. Okay, not bad. Might be able to move on to the honey coop. No, -4. Ugh. Dang. What else we got? GOP activity. Oh yeah. Yeah. You see that Joe Biden pardoned his son recently? You know, in the continual string of memes where conservatives are like, "Heh, it's over. They got him now," and they proceed to show a picture of Hunter Biden's throbbing cock or something. Uh, the conservatives again have been sent into a frenzy because Joe Biden pardoned Hunter for his crimes and whatnot, which is very funny and very base, but also indicative of just how voluntarily useless the Democrats are. Let me now explain every part of that. It is very understandable for Joe Biden to want to pardon his son Hunter because he loves him very much, and Joe Biden has lost family in the past. Hunter is basically all he has left, aside from his wife, and in his old age, and stuff like that. On that level, I do feel a degree of sympathy because he's an old man with a family, but at the same time, Joe Biden is a monster abiding war crimes in the Middle East, in Gaza and whatnot, and the fact that he pardoned Hunter, number one, is very funny, and he objectively has the authority to do that because he's the president, right? But then number two is very indicative of how voluntarily, like, the Democrats were not exercising the degree of power that they have, right? Like, one of the things that presidents usually do when they need some, like, easy W's, I think Obama did this, is they'll commute or pardon a bunch of people who have committed, like, petty drug offenses, that landed them in, like, federal prison or something like that. People whose lives have been absolutely ruined by weird and draconian laws, or, sometimes there will be a high-profile case of like I think it was this, who was it, the Central Park Five, the Exonerated Five, or something like that. I don't know if they were, no, they weren't pardoned, they were exonerated, a different thing. Pardoning certain people symbolically, or initiating investigations or dropping investigations, because presidents do have the authority to do that stuff as well. And the Democrats just weren't doing it. There were a lot of investigations that, like, the DOJ was on this. The FBI was investigating Hunter Biden. That's what he had to be pardoned from, is federal investigations. Oops. I've been disconnected. Well, maybe that's as good a place as any to stop. Regardless, the fact that they waited until now to exercise any of that power to, pardon Hunter Biden, as opposed to a number of the pro-Palestine protesters, is indicative that the Democrats could use their power for stuff if they wanted to, but they really don't feel like it. Once again, it is the Democrats' fault. Thank you. I am a socialist. How did you know? That was a good stream, despite the yelling and shouting and such. Holy shit. Ghetto Hotel stream from New York. Rivals of Ether 2. Maybe. You know what? Yeah, fuck it. Raid Mango. Mango is live. Mature audiences. Well, you guys can handle me talking about the ways in which the bourgeoisie are killing tens of thousands, which I think is a lot heavier of a burden on people's mind and conscience than, streamer who says some naughty shit sometimes. You guys can handle it. Have fun.